Hey there friends, it's Laurie and I'm back with new fun fall decor DIYs. I used mostly Dollar Tree supplies and always a few things that I have on hand. Fall is one of my favorite seasons and I hope you have fun crafting with me, so let's get busy. Getting started, I'm using a package of foam dice and I found these at the Dollar Tree in the party department. They're smaller than the dice that come in a 2-pack, but you can use those just as well. I'm using my glue gun and attaching all 4 together. I waited a few minutes to let them set up, and now using my golden brown acrylic paint, I'm giving them a coat. After the first coat, I set it aside, and when it dried, I noticed some of the dots were popping through, so then I gave it a second. I'm raising my sign up by using 3 of the tumbling tower blocks. You can leave them natural, but I painted mine with some green acrylic paint. I used my glue gun and attached them on the bottom, 1 on each end and then 1 in the center. I'm adding on the word fall and I'm using some wooden letters that I picked up at the Dollar Tree. They come with 1 complete alphabet, so you will need 2 for the double L's. Keeping with the fall theme, I painted mine orange, yellow, green, and red. To be sure the hot glue doesn't sneak out from under my letters, I'm using E6000 to attach them. I added some onto the back of each letter and centered them on the blocks. To decorate the top, I'm using some maple leaves from this Dollar Tree package. I attached them to the top of my fall sign using my hot glue and making sure that I matched the leaves up on both sides. I'm adding a tree onto the top of my fall sign and I'm using a wire branch. This is from some leftover silk flowers. I used them in a past project and I had cut them away from the main stem. I always hang on to everything and this will work perfect for my tree. I want to add some fall leaves onto my tree, so I'm using some from the Dollar Tree pack and I'm cutting them into small pieces. I wasn't fussy as I was cutting them, I just kind of chopped them up into small pieces. I ended up using all of the colors and I added some green in as well. Adding the cut leaves onto the tree is super easy. I'm first placing down a sheet of waxed paper and then using my glue gun, I'm adding some to each of the branches. When I'm done, I then sprinkle the leaves onto the hot glue. After I had added the leaves, I did give it a little shake to remove the excess. If you don't have any fall leaves on hand, you can always cut up small pieces of construction paper and add those on instead. Now that my tree is complete, you can always leave yours as is, but I'm painting the base with the same golden brown acrylic paint. I need a base to hold up the trunk of my tree, so I'm using the pumpkin and some of these berries from this Dollar Tree pick. I'm making a hole in the top, and I first need to remove the stem. I used my scissors and I made a small hole in the top, and then I placed in the trunk of the tree. If you happen to make the hole too big, not to worry, just add in some hot glue first and then place down the tree. I attached the pumpkin, berries, and tree onto the center of my fall sign using my hot glue gun. To finish up, I'm adding hot glue randomly over the top of my sign and the pumpkin, and then I'm sprinkling on some of the extra leaves. To finish up, I gave it a little shake, and with that, this pretty fall tree sign is complete. I'm popping in to say thank you to all my friends for stopping by, and if you're new to my channel, please consider clicking on that little red subscribe button below, leaving me a thumbs up, and now let's get back to crafting. Getting started, I'm using one of the styrofoam pumpkins from the Dollar Tree. I removed the tag, and now using a knife, I'm cutting a large hole in the top center. I did my best to keep the edges as round as possible, but if it's not perfect, not to worry. You can always keep your pumpkin this bright orange, but I wanted to tone mine down just a bit, so I'm covering it with some tangerine acrylic paint. This step is completely optional, but I'm adding a small base to the bottom of my pumpkin, and I'm using 4 of the Dollar Tree tumbling tower blocks. I added hot glue to the sides of the blocks and attached all 4 together. I gave them a minute to set up and then painted them with my golden brown acrylic paint. Because I'm attaching it to the bottom of the pumpkin, I painted everything but one side. I added some hot glue to the bottom of the pumpkin and attached the unpainted side, making sure that it was centered in the middle. I need something that will hold my succulents in place, so I'm using some of the Sahara foam from the Dollar Tree. It's cut into 4 pieces and I'm only using 1. I added some hot glue inside the bottom part of the pumpkin and then pushed the foam into place. To hide the irregular edges on the top of my pumpkin, I'm using some moss that I had on hand, but you can always use the Dollar Tree reindeer moss. I added hot glue onto the foam and the outside edges of the pumpkin. I then attached a generous amount of the moss. With the moss in place, it's now time to add in the succulents. I'm using assorted sizes and colors of succulents that I picked up at the Dollar Tree, as well as some greenery that I had on hand. I placed my largest in the center and then added the others around it. The one good thing when you're adding them is because you're pushing them into the foam, if you're not crazy about where you placed them, just pull them out and put them someplace else. With the succulents in place, I'm now adding in my greenery, and I'm just filling in some of the open spaces. With my succulents and greenery in place, I used my glue gun and I placed some just up and around them and added in some more of the moss. You can always skip this step. I really liked the way that it filled out the top of the pumpkin. I want to add a pop of orange into the pumpkin, so I'm using the same tangerine acrylic paint onto 2 pieces of greenery, and I'm just kind of adding it here and there on the leaves. I let the paint dry completely and then added both into my arrangement. Now that I'm done, I'm using a pretty plaid ribbon to add on a simple bow accent. I had this ribbon on hand, but the problem is it's much too large. So I figured out about where I would need to cut it to make a simple bow, and then I cut off the wired edges to make it smaller. When I was done, I then tied a simple bow in the ribbon. You can always leave the ends as is, but I cut both of mine off at an angle. Adding the bow to the pumpkin was super easy. I just decided where I wanted to place it and attached it with some hot glue. This makes such a cute piece of fall decor, and the best part is you never have to water it. To get started, I'm using one of the metal clip cups from the Dollar Tree, and you can find these in the stationery department. They have a black and a silver one, but it doesn't matter which color because I'm going to be painting it. Before I do, I'm using a piece of heavy grit sandpaper and I'm sanding the bottom. I'm roughing up the shiny finish because I'll be adding 4 beads on as feet, and this will help them adhere better. I'm attaching the 4 beads with my E6000. I evenly spaced 4 dots of the E6000 on the bottom and attached the beads. I let the glue set up, and I need to hide the black because I don't want it to show through, so I'm spraying mine with some nutmeg spray paint. You can always use acrylic paint. Now that it's dry, I'm going to cover the outside with nautical rope from the Dollar Tree. I'm starting on the top edge, adding some hot glue and placing down the end of the rope. From there, I'm continuing adding on the hot glue and wrapping the rope around the base. When I meet the end of the rope, I add some hot glue under it and then continue working my way around. And as I'm adding it, I'm doing my best to keep the rope pressed tightly together. I used the natural nautical rope from the Dollar Tree, but they also sell a white, and I think that would look cute on this pumpkin basket as well. When I came to the end, I cut my last piece of rope so that it pretty much matched up with where I began. You'll need to fill up that empty space in your basket, and you can pretty much use anything you have on hand. I'm using a piece of Sahara foam from the Dollar Tree. I added a generous amount of hot glue to the bottom of the basket, then pushed in the foam. Don't worry when you're pushing it in if it kind of crumbles or falls apart, because none of it will be shown. To fill in the basket, I'm using some raffia that I already had on hand, but if you don't have any, you can always use some pieces from the hula skirt that they sell at the Dollar Tree. I folded pieces of my raffia into about 6 inches in length. I then attached it by adding some hot glue onto the foam and the top of the basket. I kept adding on the pieces until I had the top covered. When I was done, I then used my scissors and gave it a haircut, just kind of neatening up the sides. And be sure to keep those little scraps because we'll be using them in the end. I'm adding in some pumpkins, and I'm using 2 different colors from the Dollar Tree. You can use any type. I'm using 3 orange. They're faux leather, and I just liked the color and the texture. Both sets have clips on the bottom, and they're really easy. You can just twist them off. In addition, I'm also using 3 of the white clip pumpkins. I'm using 6, but you can always add more. Using my glue gun, I'm evenly spacing them around the top edge of my basket, and I'll end up having 1 left over. As I was adding them, I did alternate the colors. I ended up with 2 white pumpkins together because I wanted the orange one to be on the top. When I had all of my pumpkins attached, I then attached my last orange in the center. You can see that there's open spaces between the pumpkins, and to hide those, I'm now using that leftover cut raffia. I folded up some of the pieces and then attached them between the pumpkins using my glue gun. When I was done filling in between the pumpkins, once again I used my scissors and I cleaned up the raffia. I'm adding a little bow onto my basket, and I'm using this pretty white, orange, and purple plaid ribbon from the Dollar Tree. Using my ribbon, I decided on the size and made a simple bow. When I was done, I then cut the 2 tails off at an angle. With my bow complete, I used my hot glue gun and attached it onto the side of my basket. I'm adding on a wooden Farm Fresh sign from a Dollar Tree 6-pack of Harvest DIY words. To hold my sign up, I'll be using a wooden skewer, and this came from the Dollar Tree as well. I don't need it to be full length, so I used my clippers and I cut it in half. I painted my sign with my orange and white acrylic paint and the skewer with my purple. I attached the 2 together using my E6000. I turned my Farm Fresh over, added some glue onto the E and the A, and placed down the skewer. Now that it's set up, it's time to place it into my pumpkin basket. And with that, this cute Farm Fresh fall DIY is complete. Here we are at the end of the video, and I really hope you had fun crafting these fall-inspired DIYs with me. If you love making your own home decor, I'll leave some playlists at the end of this video as well as in my description. If you had fun crafting with me and you're new to my channel, don't forget to click that little red subscribe button below. I hope you all have a safe and an amazing day, and until next time, bye everybody!